All right. Welcome back. This is the second half of the Building Energy Code Working Group, meeting number 6, November 6th, 2025. We will carry on. We left it our next item to consider is 1G on this list of items on the worksheet. Items or recommendations possibly to adopt for the final report. Item 1G is, it's good that Mike got back here in time. Municipal fire safety should become a single repository of RBs and CBs compliance certificates by July 1, 2027. So a year from next July, including for single family residential. Filing, and if and when that became the case, filing in town records would no longer be required. We'd like to discuss that. Anyone propose that we have some further discussion?
Secretary?
Moves, Peter seconds. Thank you. Discussion. Peter?
I'll go. Just, I would be voting no. We really feel that attorneys, will be looking for these certificates of compliance in the land records and should continue to do so.
Good. Okay. Mike, do you have any comment?
Well, yeah, I mean, you already know, as written here, I'm gonna be saying no. We did agree to, electronically accept the certificates, for those buildings we regulate. However, that doesn't come with the understanding that too may cause a little bit of confusion if there's two different filing processes. So I get that. But on our RMS system, we can link it to our permits. So that would be a very persuasive way of increasing compliance with the RBs and CBs on the buildings we do regulate, because we can link them directly to a permit. We can't do that on the single family home side. And then also we're uncertain about the heavy volume. What would that put on our admin staff trying to figure how to answer all these questions from hundreds of people looking for these records? So the way it's written now, I will be voting no.
So just to clarify, so the issue is the single family
Correct.
side of it.
Correct.
Okay. So and of course the confusion or the potential confusion is that, as you mentioned, there would be two places where these compliance certificates will be housed. One would be for buildings under DFS jurisdiction, they'll be housed to DFS, and I don't know whether those would still be in land records or not. Actually, have we discussed that?
It would be unless we got changed, it's
Yeah.
in statute.
It's still
And even the posted location, I think, is in statute
It is in
too, so
statute.
that would have to be modified regardless.
And there's no proposal to modify that
Correct.
as of now, right? So people will be filing them in two places. Okay. Sandy?
I'd just like to point out that wastewater permits are a statewide database and they're very useful to a lot of people besides lawyers doing title searches. And they cover all buildings and the statewide database is critical. I think you can publish, I don't know how their rules work for publishing in the town records as well. But the statewide database is where everybody looks.
I don't know. Does anybody know whether those are recorded in town records? Are things like of septic system designs and, or permits or something? Are those in town
Not that I've
records?
seen, I've looked before, but they're very fast and really easy. I mean, even going back to 1973, I think, there's some version, and it's just a really wonderful tool for a lot of different kinds of people.
I'll just say for a frame of reference, when Efficiency Vermont ran our above code residential RNC program, you know, where we provided PERS ratings and incentives for above code projects. That is the main resource that we utilized in outreach to try to enroll homeowners, builders into that above code program, was the wastewater permitting database, because that was the most representative and equitable resource that we could find, to find consistency, to know what new builds were happening out there in the market.
And the best,
Because
and
there's so much variability town by town in how they permit, track, account for, et cetera. New construction or modifications to existing construction, and that is still a consistent issue in how things get reported as well too, as far as the code. And that's one of the primary calls that we get into the Energy Code Assistance Center, is from either a homeowner or a builder that is calling us because the town is asking them for the code certificate because they can't get their CO. And they don't know how to fill this thing out, where it's come from, you know, how do they go about doing this? So I think there's definitely a level of inconsistency town by town throughout the state for how the documentation side of this is handled. Can't say that what the right answer to that is, but I just know that that's definitely a consistent factor in the documentation standpoint for the code.
did you have a comment, Tom? Or was- Yeah.
Only that this is a recommendation to go into the report, just reminding folks.
Yeah.
That's what we're voting on.
Yeah. So if I understood what you said correctly, Steve, you were looking for a way to find people who you could talk to about energy code issues, or it doesn't even matter what. The single consistent or single repository of information that you access was this state database.
The statewide indicator of new construction, new residential home construction, was the wastewater permitting
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Not town by town building permits or anything else. That was the indicator that was consistent enough when we were doing that level of outreach.
Yeah.
To give them information about
Right.
the offers that were available from Efficiency Vermont for above code programs.
Okay, great, thanks. Craig?
I just had a question for Peter. Like I may abstain on this, not necessarily because I'm opposed to it, but you said, Peter, that the lawyers they definitely go to the town for this. And now Sandy and Steve have both referenced, examples where people do go to state databases, which does to me seem maybe better. I don't know. So my question, I guess, is, could you see in the realtor world that could work? A state database?
Well, I will say that's a really good, the metric on new construction, is something I've been looking for. So I'll be looking at wastewater permits going forward. But it shows up in the title. It's something that attorneys look for, and where they get their information is typically the land records in the town of the property. So, I just think that should continue. I mean, not to say that there couldn't be another database if we want to, pile on and duplicate things, that could be more statewide. But as far as looking at a property for conveyance, attorneys are going to the land records for that. And I think that they should be able to be assured that they can continue to find everything they're looking for in the land records of the municipality.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? VLCT, Ted, from municipality's point of view, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think right now land records are a municipal function, and this is filed with land records and it makes sense. I don't think many municipalities would have much angst about losing this responsibility, as it's a very low value add thing at this point for towns, but this is where land records are kept, and it makes sense that these things would be kept at that local level for now.
All right. We ready to vote then?
Scott,
This is a tough one. I think I'll vote yes.
Seth,
I'll vote yes as well. I think it's a very easy shift for anybody to make because they'll all be in one place. I think that intuitively makes more sense.
all right, Kelly, no. Mike,
No,
Steve, you're not gonna vote this time because I forgot you
I'm
last.
gonna say I'm yes.
Yes. Chris,
I'm gonna abstain just because I need to figure out, I would need to talk a little bit more deeply with some of our DPI and city clerk folks.
okay, Tom,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Richard,
No.
Ted,
No,
Anne,
Yes.
Craig,
I was gonna abstain, but I think I'm gonna vote yes based on like what the senator just said, because that's where my gut is. I don't see enough red flags here just to make it not make sense. So yes.
okay, Jen,
Abstain.
Peter,
No,
yes, let's have it.
Go. Now we're into 1H, which has two parts, option 1 and option 2. Option 1. Public Service Department should continue to update RBs and CBs based on IECC and Vermont Energy goals and in accordance with DOE requirements, which include certifying that CB's updates are based on, on IECC, and that the IECC is reviewed for potential RB's updates. Did I word that correctly, Kelly?
Yeah.
So that's option 1. And option, excuse me?
I'll move option.
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to read option 2 anyway, so we know what the universe of possibilities is.
But they're separate, right?
But they're separate, we'll vote on them separately. But so, and we'll come back to option 1 in 1 second. So option 2, just for reference, future energy codes should be IECC with few or no changes. IECC updates are folded into the next IBC and IRC updates. So ultimately, by adopting IECC with fewer or no changes, ultimately, that could eliminate Vermont energy codes altogether. And this would not be accounting for Vermont energy goals. So those are the sort of the two directions we could go with this, or neither. Probably not both. So
I'll withdraw my motion and make a motion that we review option 2.
well, we can talk about it both and
No, because one doesn't matter if the other one does.
well,
So if we just vote on option 2 right now and that passes, there's no reason to discuss option 1.
all right. Well, anyway, let's have a discussion.
For option 2.
All right. Anyone second that motion?
No. I think we should vote on both of them.
All right. Sandy has a comment though.
Yeah, I think there might be two kind of misconceptions in your option too. So, in the discussion, so the IECC is needed for commercial code. There's no chapter, energy chapter in the IEC. And
Okay.
secondly is that for residential, there would still be a Vermont energy code. It would just be embedded in the IRC, or Vermont will continue with the IECC. And then not accounting for energy, Vermont energy goals are pretty much similar to the DOE goals, and the IECC follows the DOE goals. So
So those are,
to assume that there's no accounting for Vermont energy goals is false.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, Kelly,
Yeah, I'm not sure what Department of energy goals you're referring to.
The net zero by 2030.
Well, there's more than just that goal that gets considered in the update based on energy goals.
I might be better, should say really, although we're not modifying language at this point, but it should say not accounting for Vermont energy policy, probably would be a better way of putting it, but. Anyway, your clarifications around IBC and the IECC functions as the energy code in the commercial sphere is well taken, and I missed that, sorry, when I was composing this. Anyway, do we want to just vote on this, or do you want to have comments on either option? Anyone move to have discussion? Okay, hearing none, I guess we will just vote.
So we're starting with option one.
Yes, starting with option one.
Okay, Scott,
This is really a thinker here. I think I'm gonna vote yes on one.
okay, Seth,
I'm not sure. I'm gonna abstain because I'm not quite sure what I think. So I'll abstain.
okay. Kelly, yes, Mike,
I don't really know. I'm gonna say no on this one.
okay, Steve,
I'm gonna abstain on that as well.
Chris,
Chris still with us? See him.
See him there.
oh, Chris Burns.
Okay.
I don't see him. Okay, I'll go on Tom,
Abstain?
Jim,
No.
Richard,
No.
Ted,
Abstain.
Anne,
Abstain.
Craig,
No.
Jen,
Abstain.
Peter.
I'm gonna abstain.
Wow, so the noes have it.
A real thinker here. All right, option two, this is again number 1H-2. Future energy code should be IECC with fewer no changes. IEC updates are folded into next IRC updates, although they are required for IBC in contrast to what this language says, having been corrected by an architect. So ultimately, could eliminate Vermont energy codes for IRC. Well, I guess it actually could eliminate energy codes altogether, since RBs and CBs wouldn't be necessary if IECC were adopted. But in doing so, we would not be accounting in our statewide energy codes for our energy goals and policy within the state. So option two. Any discussion proposed for option two?
Make a motion to discuss.
Would like to discuss? And second to that, second from Tom. Comments? Steve?
this seems to be a crux of an issue here. Alignment with consistent standards, state policy, objectives, et cetera, complexity of the code. Many of the questions that have been raised already in the other topic areas trickle down into, I think, this category. I think it's the longer term conversation that needs to happen for administration of this moving forward. We can't observe this in the energy code in absence of the greater building code. And there are so many like overlapping and effective interchange between these that I think we've come to, again, an inflection point where this is a serious issue that needs to be considered for further conversation, further effort forward, further policy decisions. I think voices have been well presented from different interest groups that affect how this actually plays out in the field. We all have a role to play in administering for the best effective outcome to all of us who are affected by this. I mean, we're talking about our own biggest asset in our lives, our buildings, our homes, our built infrastructure. If we don't invest in our infrastructure, we have nothing else to invest in. Like, this is the crux of it all. So I really think this is a matter for long-term consideration, effective alignment and effective oversight. And I can't say that there is a definitive role any of us wants to carve out within that, but we just need to think about this in the bigger picture.
Okay, yeah. I will say that there's certainly logic to the idea of using model codes and taking advantage of the development of materials and support services that are available, and perhaps taking that off of in-state services that are required from Public Service Department and the Efficiency Vermont. But I actually found very useful something that Sandy provided, a comparison of IECC 2018 with the RB's 2024, and thought it would. I thought that the updates or the thresholds of requirements in the 2024 RBs were pretty uniformly greater than the IECC 2018, which struck me as useful. But there is certainly logic in the points that Sandy has brought up about, again, making it uniform.
I'll just acknowledge as well, too, that a big departure for what we've done with Vermont RBs versus the model IECC code in the past two code update cycles has been the prescriptive package plus points approach. That is a significant departure from the model IECC code. Yes, this points option and approach. And I've said this at the last meeting, otherwise too, is like, I think that is a factor for compliance because it becomes overwhelming to the average contractor who just is not fundamentally dug into this stuff and aware of how this applies to what they need to do. They often just kind of shove it off to the side. Project gets done, the project gets built, and then we're getting into the certificate side of things. No CO is going to be issued until there's a certificate in place, and then we're often back-ending in information into a code certificate that may or may not be relevant for full compliance. Whereas if it was a more straightforward, prescriptive pathway that didn't have all these other, alternative options to get there, it might be easier to uniformly put that out there to the construction community to take forward and adopt. And if you look at the prescriptive component requirements in the 2024 RBs versus the 2018 IECC, there's really not a lot of departure on a component by component level, other than the ACH. There's a 3 ACH requirement that would stand if you follow the 2018 IECC, and we're now at 2 ACH. The ventilation question is the big thing, in my opinion, because you can comply with exhaust only with IECC, whereas we've now required balanced ventilation, heat recovery, which I think is relevant. So I think that's the comparative analysis to look at. If we're going to consider this specific topic area realistically, is like, what are we losing if we shift to this model and model, uniform model compliance versus our own version of it, comparative to what we're still being held accountable for, which are these climate related objectives, statewide policy that we need to continue on the path forward of at this point, unless something changes. So I think this point would take, I think, some careful, like, comparative, straightforward analysis to consider whether or not it's a viable alternative.
Okay, I see Craig's hand up also.
I just want to be clear. I voted no on the last one and I'm voting yes on this one because two reasons. One is that without solving this AHJ question, I think the argument that Sandy and others have made about why this makes sense carries water for me. And the second thing is I'm taking literally, and Kelly has said as well, the second thing that in a way you could interpret either of these the same way. It's just a matter of emphasis because like Kelly says, if you voted for the last one, that's what they do already anyways, is we build off IECC. So to me, it's like this one is like, we're going to accept IECC a little bit more upfront, try to tweak it only where we need to tweak it and operationally, benefit from the operational benefits rather that comes from that. So that's my thinking around this right now, given where we're at as a step forward, which is what, Jim and the builders are so frustrated about in their letter from Andrew. I think this could be something coming out of this committee as a recommendation that could help, maybe.
Kelly.
I just want to point out, and I think I said this last time, and what Steve said, the plus point system was actually built at the recommendation of the builders who wanted flexibility. So the department's not at all wedded to that. It was responding to requests we got. And I think if we had a strong voice, which we have not had, about sticking more closely to the IECC, that would carry water as well, and not having a points. No, we want prescriptive. Like, we went away from that more prescriptive because we heard that's not what people wanted. But fine, maybe that science experiment didn't work and it just caused more confusion. So that's fine to have that perspective. But I do think the key here in the parentheses is accounting for Vermont energy goals. Like Steve just said, like, we have climate goals, we have energy goals in the comprehensive energy plan, and it's in statute that those will be considered. So the department does. And that's where the net zero ready goal came from. And that has been in the comprehensive energy plan for at least 10 years, if not 15. So it's not something new. So just that's where I see the main difference between these two. Are you going to consider energy goals and really push as hard as you can, or not? And I will say that also the department defines net zero ready as cost effective in that definition. So we are bumping up against cost effectiveness unless you change how it's done. It's from a consumer perspective right now. There's not a lot further that we would really be able to go for a net zero ready code based on that, including cost effectiveness.
And we could talk for a while
nitpicky-
about cost effectiveness. Go ahead.
No, nitpicky detail, statute does require that there's a prescriptive pathway to comply with code, so.
Right. And that's in the ICC already.
Okay,
But I'm just saying that the differential between Arby's and the ICC is that the ICC does not offer the package plus points option.
Correct.
It's a much more straightforward prescriptive pathway.
correct.
With the UA option as being a part of that. So what I will say, and I think Kelly's made the good standpoint in this on, the reality of the fact is that even if we approve the second point here, and you know, that was the decision of this group, if we're going to stick with state policy on this and where we're heading, we would still have to make amendments to IUCC to keep on track with that.
Exactly.
Reality for what we're currently obligated under statute to be doing, that's the secondary question to what makes this a more streamlined effect. You know, I'm not gonna say the word, but potentially more streamlined, uniform model code approach, which is, I think, the impetus of the second point. Like, if you really want it to be like a universal sort of nationalized standard approach, those other considerations need to be taken into account.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I'm also taking it at face value, Sandy's research in that, where to Kelly's point, that there's some net zero capable, net zero ready standard that
Well-
IECC is also marching towards, that I think we can add measures to as well, a little bit quicker if we want to.
Well, as I said at the last meeting, and this is one of the reasons Barry's here, because he has much more expertise with the IECC and ICC generally than Keith and I do. But my understanding from Barry is that it's not as net zero ready, it's net zero. So it's the ready part plus you actually, install renewable energy as part of it. Their EV infrastructure requirements could be very different. Like when we first proposed EV, we were more on the EV ready, where the IECC was very different. So I just want, be careful what you wish for, right? Like, it could be things that some people want, but it could be things that some people don't. So you say, oh, well, if we want it, then we do want to follow it. If we don't want it, we don't want to follow it, right? And I also think that this language is really too vague. Like, that is not a statute directive that we could take of few or no changes. Like, what in the world does few or no changes mean? Like, that is.
Well, this is recommendation.
I know, but I'm
We're
just
not writing a
saying,
bill here.
if that was to be put into statute, that would, I don't know what does few mean? And again, how do you caveat that? Because I'm sure there's changes, and there has been changes people do want us to make. They wouldn't want us to do net zero with, actually install the renewable energy systems as well. So, Barry, do you have anything to add to this?
No, you hit all the high points very well, Kelly.
Do you, also, there was a discussion last time that Barry, maybe you can say something about as far as changing the state input and direct voting into the process.
Well, obviously the IECC moved from the previous process, which most of their other codes are developed under, to the committee process. And that has it reduced direct input by the states and their ability to influence what was actually within the code, because it removed the individual states' ability to vote on contents. We still have the ability to influence, but it's only part through representation on the committee as a whole. And there has been a number of issues where IECC, or the ICC rather, has gone against their own committee rules and made changes out with the committee process as a result of legal actions of various entities who are part of the committees. One of the ones that comes to mind is actually the EV rules that were originally part of the 2020, God, I think it's 22. I forget exactly when it was, but it was the first version that went through the committee process. There was extensive EV rules there, and then there was a lawsuit, and the ICC moved that to an appendix and made it an optional, whereas the committee had actually voted to have it be part of the actual code itself. So there's issues even with the process that we're currently developing the IECC under.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you. Sandy, quickly, we want
Very briefly, I really like the new language in that it's not specifying a date. When VBRA and AI Vermont suggested this concept earlier this summer, we actually suggested 2018 as part of an immediate quick update at LCAR. So the idea of just the general approach is really important. There are very few states that do no amendments whatsoever. And most states have some amount of amendments. And so as language gets fine-tuned, you might want to think about what would the intention would be. And the intention, I think, would be to be able to use standardized resources that don't cost Vermont money, like the standardized test. So you could change R values, U values, or ACH values, and you could still take the standardized test. And so there are a lot of, I think that needs further discussion, but being clear about the general goal will really help. And just super briefly, I outlined this in the report that I gave to Scott, but the appeals that Barry mentioned were actually overridden. So the whole process for code updates is very ground network moving up through the regions. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick clarification question.
Yep.
Did I hear you say, Kelly, that PSD does not intend to change the code towards the 2030 goals because the definition includes cost effectiveness?
No, I'm saying that our energy, comprehensive energy plan, the goal is net zero ready. Which, the definition that the department developed includes cost effectiveness as part of that definition. We didn't adopt a DOE definition or anything else. We created our own
I
definition.
thought you said there wasn't any room to move.
There's very little, it's not a huge amount of room like this from what we had in 2024. There's not a ton of room there to stay cost effective under the current cost effectiveness test.
And to summarize the current cost effectiveness test, I think we talked about this. There's some accounting for, at some point, adding more insulation or a tighter envelope. It becomes more expensive than just adding another solar panel to pay for the electric heat pump that would offset that.
Right, I
loss.
think we'd more be looking at for the net zero ready, that cost.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
What is the trade-off, but
Right.
it still has to be, according to statute, cost effective from a consumer perspective.
Right.
And it's not a societal cost effectiveness test that
Right.
includes
No,
greenhouse gas
right.
reduction or anything like that.
Right. Okay. All right, well, we should move on. We're gonna try to get through the other items here.
I'll just say as a comparative, like when you look at the codes on the ICC's site, when you want to access the code content, there's a lot of red content, dialogue, information in the RB's code, which means that is different, specific to Vermont than what the model code would provide. So as a comparative, if anybody wants to dig into it any deeper, that's a way to look at it too, is like how much language within the model code has been changed and modified for Vermont specific goals, objectives, purposes, at whatever purpose and level you want to look at them at. But that is the comparative of how, what our code shows up as versus what the model code shows up as. And whether it's going to be the 2018 IECC or the 2021 or the 2024, whatever that may be, that's the comparative and the standard that we're looking back at, so.
I would just point out to be careful doing that kind of comparison. Basically because the Arby's code itself is, its primary language is based on the 2015, and we did bring in amendments from 2018 and 2020 codes, I think it is. So where language may have been updated, even if it's only, a few words here and there, it would still show up as a large section of red. So there's probably less difference in the impact of the language than the actual language itself might suggest.
Thanks, Barry. I was just gonna say the same thing, that a couple code iterations ago, not this one, the 2020, New Building Institute was part of our contracting group, and they rewrote a lot of language. They write code language, and they made a lot of changes to our language to provide better clarifications and actually correct things that were incorrect in the ICC, that they were part of the writing.
Yeah.
So like Barry said, I don't think, if you look, there is an awful lot of red, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the efficiency levels are different, but there are definitely efficiency levels that are different. I'm not gonna say that. So, but just looking at all the changes in red might not be.
Yeah, no, I thank you, and I appreciate that. I think it's a very good point to reference here. But if we're talking just black and white of like this specific question of adopting a model ICC code with no amendments versus what we have, I think that's a contextual comparison that needs to be taken into account. Not just,
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
I'm anxious to move on here. So, option two, I mean, I sort of characterize these as mutually exclusive. On the other hand, option two talks about future energy codes, which in a way could be saying this would be a future goal. And I could be inclined to be in favor of both of them, actually, but so anyway, let's
Ready to vote?
vote.
Okay, Scott.
I'm gonna vote yes on both of them. Look at that.
Okay, Seth.
Yes.
Kelly, no. Mike.
No.
Steve.
stand.
Is Chris back? I don't.
Oh, sorry, Chris emailed saying he had a conflict, had to leave, so
Okay,
he's not back.
okay. Tom.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Richard.
No.
Ted. Is he still on? Not seeing him.
Ted emailed that he had to leave.
Oh, he did? Okay, thank you. Anne.
Abstain.
Craig.
Yes.
Jen.
Abstain.
Peter.
Abstain.
All right.
All right, now we're going to vote on whether to consider the next group of 6 recommendations. Thank you for joining us, Richard.
If you should vote, I've been very public on my feelings on the rest of them, and I would like to enter my notes into my ballot
Okay,
into the public record.
thank you.
What
So
was the outcome of that last?
5. Yes.
Tom, your vote was?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, it's a tie.
I have
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, I'm sorry. It's the 5, the yays have it by 1. Yep, sorry. Passes.
all right, now we're going to vote on whether to consider the next group of 6 recommendations and whether to vote on these. So we'll have a quick vote on first. Are we going to talk about these? We're going to vote on these. And I guess we should go around and do a roll call on that as well. So Kelly?
Okay, so again, this is the vote on whether we're going to vote on the next list of recommendations that were discussed in meetings but not formally presented for the straw vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Scott.
Yes.
Seth.
Yes, to discuss. Yeah.
Kelly. No. Mike.
No.
Steve,
Is this to discuss?
Just to discuss the next group of
Discuss it.
recommendations.
well, I
Yeah.
thought it was to vote.
Well, and vote, yes.
Yeah. Vote.
Consider this.
Right, consider the next six.
So I'll say yes.
Tom,
No.
Jim,
Yes.
it's not here. Ted is not here. What am I doing? Anne.
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Jen,
No.
Peter,
No.
that the yeas have it, you get the same. Keith,
I missed the first three votes, sorry.
Scott and Seth were yes, and I was no. Steve was gone, so I think it passes at 6.
All right. All right, 2A. This is per Act 151 Directive number 2. That is the list of powers and duties, number 2, regarding plans and funding. The AHJ for RBs and CBs should transition to DFS in stages by 2030. Transition funding could come from TEPF. Ultimately, funding would be fees, as with all other DFS programs. And I think we have discussed this over and over and over again. So I would like to move right to a vote if we could. I think it would be pretty clear.
Yep.
Objections to that? All right. Can we vote, Kelly?
Okay, Scott,
Yes.
Seth,
Yes.
Kelly, no, Mike,
No.
Steve,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
that's gone, Anne,
Abstain.
Craig,
Yes.
Jen,
Abstain.
Peter.
No.
Okay, yes, have it.
All right. 2B. DFS should be directed to initiate rulemaking for adoption of a residential building construction code by June 1, 2026, with intent to complete rulemaking and formally adopt a code by December 31, 2027. Dates are included as a suggestion. So, again,
There's no motion to discuss.
there's no motion to discuss. I think we have discussed this at some length. I would be delighted to move right to a vote. Can we do that?
This is.
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Oh, did you make a motion to discuss that?
I did not.
Oh.
No, I said there is no motion.
Yeah, that's what I
make a
thought.
motion to discuss.
Oh, you'd like to discuss it? Okay.
This is 2B,
This is
right?
2B. Anyone would like to discuss besides Tom? Not hearing a second. Do we have to have a second for this?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, hearing none. Let's go right on to a vote.
Okay, Scott,
Say yes.
Seth,
Seth?
do you lose Seth?
No, he's there.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Sorry, I'm gonna vote no, just because of timeline, and I'm not sure we're ready for direction to them yet. I'm in favor of heading in that direction, but I'm just a little leery about saying too much too fast.
Kelly, no, Mike,
No.
Steve,
No.
Tom,
Yes, the timeline is to be determined.
Jim,
Yes.
Anne,
Abstain.
Craig,
I guess yes, but yeah, yes. Well, it's like, I don't like what the senator said again, I agree with. It's sort of, to me, it's like it's down the road, but eventually, yes.
Okay, Jen,
Abstain.
Peter,
No.
Bills.
I think that, yes, that fails. The noes have it.
All right, 2C. Statutory authority should be explicitly given to municipalities to administer and enforce RBs and CBs under the aegis of the AHJ, effectively Public Service Department currently. So the genesis of this is that we were advised, I think it was 2 years ago, that by the Council for Public Service Department, that statutory authority for municipalities to administer and enforce energy codes is not clear in statute. So the idea is that we should make it clear, and there's also an effort to encourage municipalities to adopt a sort of uniform procedures for administering codes, so forms or whatever that would be the same from municipality to municipality, so that builders or developers working in multiple parts of the state could not have different systems to understand in order to work in different municipalities. So any further discussion on that?
Motion to discuss on that.
Okay, Steve would like to discuss. Anyone else want to discuss that?
Second.
Well.
So what does that mean versus current practice? Like, we're talking about. At this point, the way that the statute's written, the only level of enforcement that could come into play is at the local jurisdiction. So.
Well, apparently that's the problem, or one of the problems, that statute is not clear on that, according to Ben Civiletti. This was, I think it was 2 years ago that he told us this. I don't know if you all remember. And so we wanted to make that clear, and also to facilitate, there's an effort through Energy Action Network and.
But how effective is that at the local level? I mean, we have a geriatric town, municipal government. I was a part of it for many years. You can't get people to play parts in local offices. That's been, I think, one of the mechanisms in the code that has been a crux to further adoption, is that there's not a local mechanism that's truly effective. I mean, so what I'm seeing in this is that we're pushing more of that authority and implementation into the local jurisdiction. I don't think it can be effectively supported.
Well, I think the effort or the idea here is to allow municipalities who want to adopt energy codes, who want to administer energy codes, to do so.
So what is
and to facilitate that.
What would be different than what's currently available right now? They can adopt stretch codes, a local higher.
Well, again, the statutory authority appears to be unclear. I looked at this once, but it was 2 years ago, and so I don't remember chapter and verse. And so the idea here is to make it explicitly clear in statute that municipalities do have authority to adopt energy codes, stretch codes, and then could, when they do adopt them, then they would be administering them. Oh, sorry.
But I thought the person that was here from VLCT said she did think they had the authority, so I'm a little confused on what the right answer is. I mean, Ben did say what he said, but he also said he's not, very versed in municipal law. He's a Department of Public Service lawyer. So,
At least he's a lawyer.
We followed up, if I could
oh, yes, and-
comment on that. We did follow up with the LCT on that question.
Ah.
And it's only clear if a municipality adopts building code. But otherwise, it isn't clear for just adopting base energy code. So we did clear that up with VLCT. I would also like to mention that I think, well, what Chris Campany's comments are on this is that he sees it as as being an opportunity for municipalities that are interested to opt in. It wouldn't be that all municipalities would be doing this, and only municipalities would do it if they had the regulatory and administrative capacity in place to implement it.
Yeah. So I think there's maybe an unfortunate word choice here, where I said statutory authority should be explicitly given to municipalities. I think probably I should have said explicitly allowed to municipalities. That's what I intended anyway. Let's see. Thank you, Ann. I saw Richard's hand up a minute ago. Did Ann cover your comment, Richard?
She did, thank you.
Okay. Sandy.
In the previous, both Benson Valletti's work and previous reports from this group, it is quite clear that municipalities do not have enforcement authority at this time for energy codes. There is an entire program in place for building codes. So all the other building codes under fire safety for public buildings. And it's a well-established program. There are 11 municipalities now with agreements. And so they do have enforcement authority funneling correctly through fire safety so that fire safety can manage variances and appeals. This system that is being described here, because there's no comprehensive AHJ, it is currently PSD. This would be an entirely second system overseeing construction in Vermont, which would be incredibly confusing to builders, incredibly confusing. That different towns have different processes for whatever. Even if there's a statewide energy code, the enforcement and the history of variances would be different. It would times 254 potentially. It's a nightmare. So I think what you're going to hear from Jim is that if the AHJ is moved to fire safety, and that was what was recommended above, then this makes sense. And it would be part of an already existing program. It doesn't even need the statute language. Or it's not going to DMS for single family homes, and it should not be under PSD.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, definitely in this, I've heard from other builders as well that this really fragments the system and makes a confusing process exponentially more confusing to follow, because, okay, what town am I dealing in and what are their requirements and what was the main code and how does it differ? And keeping all those things straight, it's not an impossibility, it's just a greater complexity that is going to force other builders, like there's some towns in the state that some builders just say, I will not work there. And just because of some of the difficulties that they face, I'm not saying that's a good excuse. It's just the reality that the people would be facing. So having an ultimate AHJ, once again, you know, instead of a fragmented system, we think would be a much better option. So we will definitely be voting no on this one.
Okay. Any other comments? I'd like to move to a vote so we can try to get through as many of these as possible.
okay, Scott,
I'm going to vote yes.
Seth,
I'm gonna vote, yeah, I'm gonna vote yes, just because I do not believe in telling towns I tend to want to give towns authority.
okay, Kelly, no, Mike,
No.
Steve,
No.
Tom,
No.
Jim,
No.
Ann,
Yes.
Craig,
I'm gonna abstain on this one.
Jen,
Same.
Peter,
No.
noes have it.
All right. 2D. The appropriate office, most likely Attorney General's office, should establish a database for tracking technical details, which would be provided by construction and energy experts of consumer complaints and litigation regarding building problems. Is that clear enough? The appropriate office, most likely AGO, should establish a database for tracking technical details, which would be provided by construction and energy experts of consumer complaints and litigation regarding building problems. This was proposed during the course of discussion at one point. I don't know that it got a lot of discussion. Do we need to have more discussion now, or can we move right to a vote?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay, Steve would like to discuss. Anyone second? I'm seconding.
Thompson.
Yeah. All right. Do you have comments, Steve, or?
I don't know if this is necessarily coming into play with the distinction between licensed trade versus regulated trade, OPR, Secretary of State jurisdiction. Like, I think that's been one of the conversation points around general contractors coming under the jurisdiction of OPR as a regulated occupation versus a licensed occupation and trade. Like, from what, and I may be wrong on this, but from what I have understood it, with OPR's jurisdiction, it is about trade practices, contract terms. You know, that is the jurisdiction overseen by OPR. Yet more of the potential concern or issue that comes up in the construction industry is about professional practices, damage, potential quality of work, damage to, you know, assets, et cetera. This somewhat, in the way I'm reading it, kind of blurs the lines of whether or not this is a discussion about this being a licensed trade versus other ways of kind of coming to that same outcome and having some level of accountability without saying it.
Well, what I had in mind, my intent was to try to begin to accumulate information about construction issues, problems in construction that are of a technical nature rather than financial fraud kind of
I mean,
issues.
how much do we really need to research that? Because I think we all can understand that there's a trail of breadcrumbs that would lead to that.
Well, but we don't have a list of problems as I understand it. Anyway, I'm gonna defer now to Jen.
Thanks.
Yeah,
One tool that, oh, I'm sorry, did you say Jen or Jim?
Sorry, Jim, it's awfully close. Jennifer.
Okay, so one of the tools that OPR has, you know, we get a ton of complaints and a lot of people complain about quality of work, and we screen those complaints out. So we will have data about the number of consumers that have complained about quality of work. Obviously, we're not investigating those, so because we don't have authority over standards or work quality, but we'll at least have something to show, like, how many complaints did we have to screen out because they were at their root about quality of work. So I just wanted to point out that that's one tool that we have. The other thing is that I would just be, I mean, the AG's office, they don't have somebody here on this committee, and I can just see that this could be a very challenging thing to implement. So I just want people to think about that. It's easy when there's not somebody here from their office to just say, oh yeah, they should do that. But I wouldn't be comfortable voting in favor of this because they're not here to ask questions and advocate on this point.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up on what following up on what Jen just said. Thank you, Jen. I agree. I plan to abstain because on the face of it, the face value, it seems like it would make sense, but I agree. So what Jen just said that I would have wanted to hear from the Attorney General's office about it, how they could do it, would it have costs, would they need to do a new database, all that kind of thing. And Jen, can I ask you a follow-up question though? When you said that you will have record of consumer complaints, will you have any categorization or any description of those, or would it just be like consumer complaints about quality of work, period?
So when somebody files a complaint with our office, they do a summary of what the issue is. And a lot of the times they will put in like, the contractor did X, Y, or Z and it was shoddy work. So we can, and we actually are in the process of creating a spreadsheet of all the complaints we've gotten and putting summaries in that include the nature of the complaint and that would include the type of work, but it's not going to be super specific. So somebody might complain about a roof, but all of the technical details of that, it would not be included in what we would provide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, some of the wording here is a little challenging and in the sense of, VBRE wants to vote yes for this because of tracking the technical details, but more so the technical deficiencies of where things went awry for, bad building science. And that could be just a level of ignorance on the builder side, not understanding the building science appropriately. But when it comes into the consumer complaints, one thing that I would caution us on is to not become a Yelp situation where you're, giving 3 stars, 2 stars, whatever, and, without adjudication. Because one thing the OPR does do right now is that when complaints come in for fraud, they properly investigate and adjudicate the case so that a builder, if they didn't do anything wrong or they weren't liable, then they're going to have that level of protection in that regard. But the consumer also has a level of protection. But in this case, just allowing it to be almost like a social media rating system for consumer complaints like, well, I don't like this one or whatever. I've heard a lot of stories over the decades, and I just think we need to be careful there. But definitely having a place to the ugly stick file, as we called it, when we're keeping track of these failures, it is important for consumers to know, not just to get the builder in trouble, but to understand what can go wrong if you don't get it right.
And to something Jim just said, I want to clarify. This spreadsheet would not identify the builder. It would not have any details that could identify where the property was, and it would not identify the complainant. So our materials are confidential under 3 VSA 131. So any complaint that we get that we don't file charges in and adjudicate, we keep anonymous. So it wouldn't be like a Yelp situation where a builder's identified based upon, solely something that a consumer said without it being adjudicated.
All right. Any other comments on that? Oh, Tom.
Yeah. Details are complicated and failures are also complicated. Details are complex, failures are complicated. And there is a lot of argument a lot of times when there has been a failure about which detail is to blame. So I think it opens it up for arguments to try to identify which detail is to blame for a certain failure. And there are experts on both sides often complaining or arguing about these things, trying to come to a conclusion. So I think trying to create a database of these things would be very difficult, if not impossible.
Steve.
Well, I think we just made the point that standards of practice that are uniform standards to all be following underpins any sort of effective enforcement of something like this. If we can't bring it back to a standard of practice for uniform construction, that bearing point for that deck ledger should have been X, Y, or Z. If you don't have a standard to reference to, then what's your basis? You just have this uniform, like he said, they said, methodology to it. That's the mindset and procedure around having standard uniform codes and something to reference back to. Right. And even, in the talking about this in context to the contractor base, like if you can reference a standard of practice as to why you did X, Y, or Z, then you have a little bit more to stand on in an argument case with the consumer or someone else as to why you got to that conclusion versus, I just think this is the best way to do it.
All
So
right,
that's an underpinning to that point, I think.
I'd like to move up, Sandy, we really want to move on though, but
I was just gonna say that this item was approved 2 years ago, 2023. And the idea is to begin to track how many buildings are failing, mostly to improve the building science, but also to have an awareness of frequency with different kinds of failures. And Jim didn't say this yet, but I think BVRA is proposing that this is important, but it should not be an AGO. They already have a database that is pretty vague. It should be with the new, whatever the future AHJ is. In other words, part of this uniform integrated system, not yet another authority.
all right. I think we're gonna move right to a vote.
Okay, Scott,
I'm think unfortunately this is not fully baked, so I'm gonna vote no.
okay, Seth. You still there with us, Seth?
No, oh, yeah, here he is. Well, let's go back to him.
Okay, Kelly, no. Mike,
No.
Steve,
Say no, I don't think this is the right way to approach it.
Tom,
No.
Jim,
BBRA was voting yes.
Anne.
She said she had to go and they abstained on all of the.
The remaining?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Craig,
No.
Jen,
No.
Peter,
Pardon me, ask the Attorney General, no.
all right, this one does not pass. Seth, are you back? Do you wanna put in a vote? Okay, last call. All right,
All right, that was miserably unpopular. 2E, if we can get through these or not. Future code update should add designer entry to the Arby's compliance certificate to be signed by the effective building designer, whether that person is the builder or other party, and whether that person is credentialed or not. Can we vote on that, or do we need to have further discussion? We have discussed this at least a little bit in previous meetings.
I would move to discuss.
All right, Kelly would like to
Briefly.
discuss. Anyone else? Nope. Mike seconds. All right, what else do you have?
I would just say that, we're gonna abstain on this because it is directive, and not just a consideration. I would want to discuss this with the builder community. Particularly, I know on the CB side, we do have both designers and contractors signing, and I think that impacts compliance with the certification. It can back things up, having those two signatures. So I would want to discuss that further before with the building community before we would do that. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, there is some statute that limits the activity of individuals to act as architects. And a designer could fall under that as defined in that statute, so we would vote against it.
We don't require architects on.
You don't require architects, but we're for designating someone as a designer. That puts them into that area that could be regulated by that statute,
Okay,
in my opinion.
okay. Any other thoughts on this? Sandy?
Coming from BVRA, that this is not effective unless it begins to issue a pre-construction review process. Then to name the designer after it's built adds nothing to the process. So that would then in turn require that there have to be some kind of plan review at town level or state level, and it's just answering, or sorry, it's bringing up more problems than it's solving.
Yeah, thoughts, Landon?
I would also add, adding a requirement that a designer be, required at a property of that size outside of current state statute would absolutely add significant cost to a project, and that would be concerning.
All right. Move to a vote. Any other comments? Okay,
Okay, Scott,
unfortunately not fully baked either. I'm gonna vote no.
okay, Seth.
No.
Take it back.
No.
No?
Yeah.
Kelly, no. Mike,
No.
Steve,
No.
No.
Jim,
No.
Craig,
No.
Jen,
Abstain.
Peter.
No.
Hey, the noes have it. By a lot.
I want to vote.
Unanimously. All right. 2F, OPR should initiate a sunrise process, this is their normal process to assess adding HERS rater, which is currently under Public Service Department, and energy professional, a new profession, or profession, I guess is the right word, to regulated professions. So the HERS rater is currently regulated, I guess, at Public Service Department. And this goes back to the history of the HERS rater, the only HERS rater in the state being Efficiency Vermont. And Efficiency Vermont was sort of under the aegis of public service at the time. There aren't that many HERS raters in the state now, but there are more than just Efficiency Vermont. And
Well, we're not. We're only involved at this point in multifamily low income.
Okay.
As far as providing.
Um,
And I'll just note that we were never the only game in town, but we were the only game that anybody showed up to because we did it for free. So it was still an option for code compliance,
Okay.
like prior to our involvement as being what we contributed to that.
All right, do we want to have a discussion about this, or can we vote?
I'd actually move to discuss.
All right, Peter. Peter moves to discuss. Anybody else? Tom wants to discuss.
And so my comment is, how often would a HERS rater or an energy professional have a contract on a building that exceeds $10,000, which is a threshold for registry at this point?
Oh, this wouldn't be added to the builder registry. It would just be another profession that would be regulated by OPR.
It's
A new profession.
A new profession.
Okay, I'm done. Yep, thanks.
Other thoughts? Sandy?
It made sense to put this under the AHJ so that that person's having completely streamlined training and code update information with everybody else who's doing the construction.
Okay. Any other comments? Can we vote? We're at 3:57. Well, we'll get this last vote in anyway.
Jim still on?
Yes.
If Jim has any comment on this, as being a HERS rater.
There's definitely the value to it, but at this point in time, VBRA was wanting to vote no to this one, so I will align myself there. And then currently there is one more HERS rater that just dropped off for doing HERS raters in the state of Vermont. So it's just like they're few and far between, but definitely there's a value to it. It's just, where is it going to be regulated? And I think it's still, if it's going to be regulated, it needs to be under the AHJ, like Sandy was saying.
All right.
Ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay, Scott,
I'll vote yes.
Seth,
I'm gonna vote no for now. No.
Kelly, I'm abstaining. I don't think we've discussed this enough. Mike,
No.
Steve,
Nope.
Tom,
No.
Jim,
No.
Craig,
Abstain.
Jen,
No.
Peter,
No.
noes have it.
All right. Here we are at 3:58. There are a few items under group 3. The one that has been brought up by AIA, by Tom, is the question about authority having jurisdiction being clearly defined. That seems to me to be something that would be a topic worthy of discussion and perhaps a vote by the group. But we'll leave it to the group to decide whether we want to discuss any of these.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
That the department can put what's been suggested in the report, and then the group will be voting on the report, and they could comment to take that out or not.
Okay.
Then people are voting on actual language too, and can
Okay.
suggest to modify it, which I don't feel like we have enough time right now.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe what we should do, since we are out of time, is if anybody has any comments on these other items, how can we get people to respond to that in an open meeting type, open meeting way?
I think we were gonna vote on whether people wanted to take these up, because again, we haven't really discussed them, so we could vote on whether people want to take them up, and if they want to take them up, we could take them up at the next meeting. That's what I think
Okay.
would be the best, so.
Makes sense. Oh, yep, Jim.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there also a mechanism that there could be like a 3D, or 3E added in those comments so it can be open discussion so everyone has that clarity? It was brought up because in light of Brewer's comments that the penalty part of 30 VSA 51 section G be eliminated until there's actually the opportunity for the enforcement mechanism and education mechanism to be properly established to mitigate the risks that builders are continuing to face. And we were wanting to have that as part of the consideration, if at all possible.
I'm sorry, I didn't really catch that.
So under the current statute, for compliance with ARBs, there is the penalty section for builders for responsibility of not meeting the certain standards, but without the proper underpinnings in place to support it, to make sure that there's proper enforcement, education, and everything else, then it's just putting builders in an unfair risk. And so that's why we were saying, okay, until that's established, until there's an AHJ, until there's a functioning system, instead of just increasing the code and then putting all the liability on the builders, we're thinking that should be, at this point in time, it's section G for the punitive side of not filing RVs, that would be removed. If that makes sense.
Am I hearing you say that the punitive action against the builder cannot be held until there is an AHJ that will enforce the components of the code requirements? Is that what
That is what was put forth, yes.
So this is another recommendation that would be added to this list, is that?
That was when we had our meeting earlier today, that's what was brought up, yes, sir.
Okay.
So this is a consideration to add.
To add to this
I'm hearing Jim
this
say
group of
that
three.
for further discussion.
And another item, group to the group of three, to the group 3 list of additional recommendations, is that right?
That would be correct in light of Andrew Brewer's comments, which codified our position.
Okay. All right, so maybe what we'll do right now is vote whether to consider these additional recommendations, including the one you just brought up, at the beginning of the next meeting. And the next meeting, by the way, as I think you all are aware, is we decided we needed to have one more meeting since we haven't got the report all more or less finalized for a final vote. So we were going to do an online only meeting next Wednesday at what time was it? 1 o'clock or?
Yeah, 1 to 2:30.
Yeah, so
Can I also raise too, I want to just make sure people are aware, if we do vote to add these to be voted on the next meeting. Obviously, the departments has to have the report done by the 15th, which is a Saturday, so it'd be Friday. So if things were voted past and people wanted to do any comments on that, you would in effect have one day to do that, so we could finish the report Friday. It's fine. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that it would be a very tight time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'll make the motion to include those other additional comments for consideration next Wednesday.
All right, second to that?
Second.
Second, or Jim, yeah, okay. I think Tom got in before you, Jim. All right, so a quick vote on adding this third group of recommendations to what we consider next meeting.
To vote on at the next meeting.
To vote on the next meeting, yes.
Okay, we ready for the vote?
Ready to vote?
All right, Scott,
Yes.
Seth,
Yes.
Kelly, no. Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Peter.
No.
Okay, the yeses have it, so we will consider those. And is the wording for the other additional one somewhere that?
Yeah, so Andrew, could you provide a very brief, succinct?
No more than 2 or 3 pages?
Yes, no more than 2 or 3 lines.
A recommendation like it's in here, and I will add that and then resend out those additional recommendations for vote at the next
And
meeting.
then maybe Tom could also try to summarize the HJ.
It sounds like the language might be in and we vote on that. I'm okay with that.
Oh, is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
just gonna
okay,
use
that's
what
right. All right.
Tom had already proposed, and then when we vote and discuss the report at the next meeting, people can suggest different language changes or vote to take it out, whatever.
All
we're
right.
gonna do.
Sounds good. Sandy, one quick
I
comment?
just wanted to flag that there was a serious structural problem in the one that was voted no about the residential building code. I think it should have said only duplexes and rentals, because single family homes would have opened a whole other issue about establishing authority. And I don't know if that affected the vote, but it's a really serious structural missing of a couple words.
What
So-
what number?
It was the, which one was it, residential building code? Shoot. Someone help me remember. Yeah, 2B. And that's why I was trying to wave my arm, because duplexes and rentals already have an authority over them, and making a resident, creating a building code for them would not be a huge thing, although I know they're not gonna do it without being.
This one was voted down anyway, was it not?
It was, but it didn't make it clear whether it was single family or duplexes.
Okay,
And it's a structural
okay,
Yeah.
vagueness.
okay.
What was the vote on 2F? Sorry.
2F,
Yeah. 2F.
I think that was.
it did not pass.
Was a no? Okay. Thank you.
I didn't vote no on that because of it not being specific about single family versus multifamily.
All right, I think we are a little beyond time here, 4:07. And thank everyone for your participation and
Move to adjourn?
yeah, move to adjourn.